You've died and gone to the afterlife. There waiting for you is your partner of 65 years. They're young and vibrant again and looking forward to spending forever together with you. But before you can adjust to that realization, another person emerges. It's your first spouse who died 67 years ago and waited for you before deciding where they would spend their forever. Now, you face a tough decision. It's eternity. I'm Ronald Young Jr., and I'm leaving the theater. All right, this is Ronald, and I am leaving the theater after seeing Eternity. Eternity, written by Pat Kinane and David Frayne, directed by David Frayne, starring Miles Teller, Elizabeth Olsen, Callum Turner, John Early, Olga Merediz, and Divine Joy Randolph. And per usual, for a complete cast listing, you can go to the link in our show notes. It is just me today. Eternity is a movie about a man named Larry who dies. And as he goes into the afterlife, he is confronted with this structure in which he has a week to choose where his permanent afterlife will be. While he's there, he realizes that his wife, who had cancer, was soon to die, and he wanted to wait for her before he chose his afterlife. His wife dies, and when she does, they both realize that there's been another man waiting for her in the same afterlife kind of temporary waiting area, and his name is Luke, and this was her first husband. He died in the Korean War. 2 years later, she marries Larry, has a full life with Larry, including children and grandchildren. She is then confronted with the choice to choose who she will spend eternity with, because whoever she chooses, that will be the permanent choice for the rest of eternity. Wow. Okay, so this film, I think the premise is what got me. I said, oh, that's an interesting premise. It's a love triangle. The premise started strong. And I think one of the first thing I note is that in the afterlife, you are reverted to the body in which you were the most happiest. This means that when we see Miles Teller and we see Elizabeth Olsen in the afterlife, they are young, but they are acting like old folks. We meet them as old folks, bickering in the car, being generally like just grandparents. You know what I mean? That's how we meet them. And the first thing I noted was that as soon as Miles Teller shows up in the afterlife, he's acting like an old person. And it's not the way he's walking, but it's more the way he's talking and the way he's relating to the world, which I thought was a lot of fun, because Elizabeth Olsen was doing the same thing. And even when Callum Turner shows up as Luke, he died after he was shipped off to the Korean War. And as a result, he also is embodying someone from a long time ago. Even though he's in this youthful body, his soul is very much still this old-timey war 2030s like that type of guy. Hopefully I'll understand what I mean. I think that portion of the acting was very, very admirable. I think it was a small thing, but obviously they discussed it enough that I felt like they nailed that portion of it. Divine Joy Randolph and John Early are very funny in this movie. They play what are called ACs, or afterlife coordinators. Their whole job is to usher along people in making their eternity decisions. The way that they both interact with Elizabeth Olsen and Miles Teller and Callum Turner is very, very, it's fun. I'm having a good time. At some points, it felt like an ensemble comedy, even though it was more about the love triangle, but they gave Divine Joy Randolph and John Early so much to do that it was just very good. And everybody had chemistry. There's chemistry between Miles Teller and Elizabeth Olsen. There's chemistry between Elizabeth Olsen and Callum Turner. And then there's also this great dynamic between Miles Teller and Divine Joy Randolph, as well as between John Early and Divine Joy Randolph. They're just all enjoyable and such a delight to watch on screen. While I'm watching this movie, I realized that if you are a fan of The Good Place or Upload from Amazon Prime or The Adjustment Bureau, this will be a movie that you probably also enjoy. Definitely that sense of I don't know if magical realism is the right term, but I will use it to say they don't do a lot of explaining as to what the afterlife is. As a matter of fact, I appreciated that they made it very neutral and non-religious, meaning that everyone has an afterlife, everyone chooses an eternity, and it's up to them to choose exactly where they want to be. And if some of those are religious, then so be it. And if some of those are not, then so be that as well, which was interesting. And they had a lot of fun selecting all the different types of afterlives. It reminded me a lot of The Good Place in that way. For those that enjoy that show, there's a lot of references to all the different types of good places, or there's a restaurant that kept changing the name and it had puns in the name about clam chowder and so on and so forth. And I feel like that joke is kind of continued, even though it's not by the same person, but it's continued in this movie, meaning that there's just an infinite amount of types of worlds you can go. There's beach world, there's mountain world, there's Studio 54 world. There's a lot of jokes about the world. They were just really enjoyable. Like all of the kind of jokes about what world that you could go to, and there's a lot of things happening in the background as they're in this kind of busy kind of train station / depot area that looks kind of like a combination of any conference hotel you've ever been to and any train station you've been to. There's a beautiful kind of combination of both of those things happening here. And there's all of these different selections of the type of afterlife eternity that you can choose. And it's just funny. It's funny. They have a lot of fun with that portion of it. But it's a very interesting premise, because this movie is talking about loving more than one person at the same time. It's talking about two different types of love, meaning that the type of love that Joan, who is Elizabeth Olsen, had with Larry was different because she was with him for a very long time, versus the love that she had with Luke, which was new and hot and fresh. And it was very much the spark that people think of. All of that existed there. Pitting those two types of love against each other was very interesting, because I think it's the ways in which we think about whether or not something is working or not. I feel like I've heard it said, whether directly to me or generally, you'll just be like, I just don't feel that spark. I don't feel that spark. And I think it's interesting, because I think this movie explores something that I've only done a thought experiment on, which is the idea of a spark is very exciting because it starts a fire, and so when you're starting a fire, you see the flint light up, and then you see those sparks fly, and then it's fire. But if you think about what fire became, when we started to control it, became electricity. And something that's not exciting is walking into a room and turning on a light switch. And that's not exactly a miracle, because we could dismiss it as ordinary. But if we still go by the beach and stand by the fire, we're like, ooh, the fire is so interesting. they both give light, but for some reason we value one over the other, even though the utility of electricity is still a miracle. It's just become mundane in the way that we kind of live our lives. And that's kind of what we look at when it comes to these longer term relationships, or relationships in which you ease into the comfort of it. And it doesn't mean that it doesn't mean as much to you, but it certainly means that your relationship with it is different. And I think this movie does a very good job of addressing both of those head on. It says, this is one thing and this is another thing. And Elizabeth Olsen has to do a lot of work in a woman who is torn between those two decisions of, this is hot and sparky and so deeply romantic that this man waited for me in this depot 67 years for me to show up so that we could be together. And she has to weigh that against, but I built a life with this other man who I have such a good rapport with, and we have all this family history, all of that, which also feels important. And it does a very good job of her walking the balance between those two things and her confronting them and really making a decision as to what she actually wants. This movie, Eternity, is kind of past lives with jokes. You know, this is a lot more funny, a lot more lighthearted. It's a true romantic comedy. Past Lives is a drama. It's a romance. It's not meant to be funny. And it's not funny. And it was hard for me. It was devastating for me to watch. Whereas this, there were parts of it that made me feel deeply sad and like, oh my God, what a decision. And there were other parts of it that made me understand kind of the choice that the woman, the main character, I'm forgetting both the name of, I want to say her name is Greta Lee, but but that's not the character's name. But it's making me understand the choice that she had in past lives in a way that I couldn't appreciate before. And I'll revisit the movie. But again, it's a movie about thinking about the possibilities of love and what it looks like to be in love when love continues, and to think about the possibility of love when love begins. And it really says, which one do you want? It looks you straight in the face and says, which one do you want? And man, I liked it. I dug it. And with this movie existing and a movie like Good Fortune coming out, movies that are smaller than, say, something like Sinners or Wicked for Good or Avatar's coming out in a couple of weeks, it gave me some hope. This is an original screenplay. And for this to not be an adaptation of something else, for it to be completely original and made, it just made me so excited. This and Good Fortune heartened me for the possibilities of storytelling in Hollywood. And with all that being said, for me, this was a strong 4.25. I liked it a little bit more than Good Fortune, but not by much. I think I gave Good Fortune a 4. This is a 4.25 because at one point in the movie, I thought it was starting to get a little silly and I thought it was starting to run off track. And then it adjusts, and it doesn't just adjust. It knew what it was doing. It wrote itself into the right direction in a way that just, oh man, it was very satisfying to watch. And I enjoyed it. So yeah. Miles Teller, fantastic. Elizabeth Olsen, I think, is one of the most underrated actresses of this generation. I'm glad that she's moving beyond the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And I feel like if this is any indication of where she's going, then we should be very excited for her. Everyone in this job did a great movie. Callum Turner, fantastic. I don't know what else he's in. I'm sure y'all do. You're probably yelling it at me right now. But I know he's been in other things that I may have missed or things that I did not recognize him in. He's fairly new to me, but I know he's been in other things. And John Early and Divine Joy Randolph. Divine Joy Randolph is wonderful in this movie. She's so good. I hope that she keeps getting work. I feel like I've seen her around since I know she was in Orange is the New Black, but I first recognized her from Only Murders in the Building. And then, of course, she did the one with Paul Giamatti a few years ago, The Leftovers, The Holdovers, one of those two. And yeah, I just really enjoyed her in this film. Everybody did a great job. Yeah, this is a 4.25 star movie. And a couple times in my mind, it was pinging 5 stars. It was pinging it up there, but not quite. There was a little bit of silliness that I felt like kind of pulled it off track. And I think that there were some constraints that were plot driven, meaning that there were rules that only existed in this version of Eternity as plot devices. The passage of time, perhaps. Every constraint that existed in this film they were all plot specific. So something about that was a little bit off-putting. Not off-putting, but it was one of those like, didn't quite think of it all, did you? Or this only makes sense in the context of this Eternity, which it wasn't bad, but it's one of those things where I started to question some of the rules here. Early in the film, Larry runs into Luke at a bar and he doesn't recognize that it's Luke, even though he'd seen a picture of him in real life. And I felt like that was a little bit like, you just saw a picture of him. Why would you not? You would know who that was. And then also, why would you introduce him in that way? But there's a bookended part of the film, which is why I think they went in that direction. And the whole idea is of all the bars in the world, why'd you choose this one type thing? I think there was a romantic element there. So little things like that is what knocked it down for me, but still very good. 4.25 of 5 stars. And with that, Leaving the Theater is a production of Oh It's Big Ron Studios. I mixed this episode, and by the time you're hearing this, I probably changed the URL on the Patreon website. So go to the link in the show notes. It will be specific there. It's likely going to be patreon.com/ohitsbigron, unless I can't get that one. But by the time you're hearing this, what I'm doing is consolidating the Patreon because I want to start using all Oh It's Big Ron Studios projects in one place. We've been very successful with Leaving the Theater, meaning that we have a lot of dedicated patrons. So for all of you that are already patrons right now, and you'll notice you're hearing a part of the show that you don't normally hear in the ad-free episodes, but for all of you that are dedicated patrons now, you will start to receive more. You'll get whatever offerings that come with supporting Oh It's Big Ron Studios beyond just Leaving the Theater. Those will all come. You will not lose anything. You will still get I Don't Like That as I eventually make a new episode. You will still get On the Couch. You will still get Leaving the Theater ad-free. You will still get updates. I believe I'm going to add a newsletter. There's going to be a lot more coming to Patreon, and the first step that I need to do is consolidate everything and then start giving all the news. I'm beginning to pivot, wait for it, and this is the first that you'll hear this. I want to pivot, wait for it. I'm putting out new episodes very soon, but also I'm developing new shows. And I don't want to rely on money from studios and podcasting studios to do that. I want to use the listeners that already believe in what I'm doing and what I'm able to do. And I know a lot of y'all have been with me for a long time, and all I'm saying is stick with me, stay in the Patreon. And for those of you that haven't joined the Patreon yet, Leaving the Theater listeners, this is a good time to join. If not, I appreciate that you still listen to the show, but know that by joining the Patreon, you are moving the future of Oh It's Big Ron Studios ahead. And that means a lot to me. And there's going to be more. There's more offerings coming. If you're saying that I need to get something for the bucks that I'm giving you, I will be beginning to offer more. You'll see it as it comes. For those of you that have been in the Patreon the whole time, you've seen that the offerings have increased over the last year or so. And that will continue in the future. But I need y'all to remember, today is Wednesday before Thanksgiving. I'm out here seeing a movie so I can get this out to y'all. This is labor. It is a labor of love, but it is labor. And if that means something to you, go to patreon.com/ohitsbigron, probably. And if that doesn't work, just click on the link in our show notes. That will certainly be correct. Show art from Heather Wilder. Theme music by the mysterious Breakmaster Cylinder. For more information about Eternity, check out our show notes. You can find me on Instagram, Blue Sky, TikTok, Threads, or Letterboxd at Oh It's Big Ron. That's at OHITSBIGRON. You can find out more about this show and other Oh It's Big Ron Studios shows by following us on Instagram at Oh It's Big Ron Studios. Leaving the Theater will be back soon. Thanks for listening. I'm Ronald Young Jr. and I'm like that type of guy.